Good evening, boys, girls, dogs, animals, wherever you may be in this planet. It is day 4 of the new year, and the Highbury squad returns to cover in half an hour the top 5 Arsenal stories of the day. Here we go. Okay, joining me on the show today is Mr. Super Kev, Super Kevin Campbell.
How are you, Soph?
I'm doing good for a Monday. How about you?
Listen, I'm good. I had a good conversation with our friend Harry earlier on.
I heard that.
He's warmed me up.
Okay, cool. And good. Look, this is how professional I am. I just realised that my mic isn't actually plugged in, everyone. So this is live housekeeping stuff that should have been done before we came on air, but there you go. I listened and I really enjoyed the conversation with you and Harry. Some really good stuff there. Some great listener questions as well. Harry's a good friend of the show. Go over to the Chronicles of a Gooner and sign up for that. Super Kev, we have our top 5. This is what we're doing on Mondays now, our top 5 stories of the day. Before we do that, we're going to say hello to all of our fans and listeners across this great universe, from Australia to India to the US to Brazil, to all corners of the earth. Good evening, guys, and welcome to another edition of the Highbury Squad. Look at this baller right here, 6 a.m. in Australia, Super Kev. Come on.
I love it, Archangel. Love it.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, here we go with the top 5 of the day. We're going to start at number 1, which is kind of the biggest story right now. You and Harry talked about it a little bit on your show too. One of the things I wanted to dive into a little bit more on this is the potential ramifications for Arsenal's youth if this deal with Buendia from Norwich goes through. Clearly, we need a playmaker. It seems like the Isco thing is dead. Maybe it wasn't even alive to begin with, to be honest with you, but we'll get to that eventually. We saw him a little bit in the Premier League. In the Premier League, I think he was 3rd in creating chances, Super Kev. Definitely a shining light for Norwich in a really poor season in the Premier League. He's definitely helping them in the Championship. How realistic is this deal? For me, 40 million seems steep, but they're talking about Reiss Nelson and maybe Willock being involved in this. I want you to just talk me through if you feel comfortable with that, if he's the right player, and would you do a cash player deal when it comes to that playmaking role that clearly we need cover for because ESR is still coming into the team?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think it will only be loan for Reiss Nelson and Willock, I believe. So what they lose on the swings, they kind of gain 2 players, 2 quality young players at that. To help in their promotion push. I think Buendia is a very good player. He's very skillful, he's creative, and he could score a goal, which is everything we lacked before these 3 youngsters came into the team. Let's be honest. I truly believe this is Arteta now starting to try to shape who we are as a team. I think the experienced players have let him down. And I think he's looking to add hungry, talented young players. And Buendia fits that bill. He's played at the highest level. And in a poor side, 3rd highest chances created. That's massive. So what could he do in a good side?
You know, KC, his youth career was at Real Madrid. He was at Getafe, of course, for 4 years, 40 appearances there, 6 goals. He's been at Norwich since 2018, 93 appearances, 16 goals. He's played for the Spain under-19 side back in the day, but also now, obviously, for the Argentine under-20 squad as well. Here's where I've kind of come to you before, in that sometimes I feel, and I mentioned this and I asked this question to you and Harry earlier, is that we're a little bit snobby. Look at Ollie Watkins and what he's doing at Aston Villa, and look at Ben Rama, what he's doing as well. Brentford would have developed some really good players. The Championship develops really good players. Let's be honest, Grealish really made his mark and his name playing for Aston Villa in the Championship and then translated that into the Premier League. I don't think we should be too snobby, but I also think this 40 million tag is too much. But if you add Reiss Nelson or Willock into it, of the two, would you try to make this a loan situation, or are you willing to let them go, Casey, if I'm giving you the war chest to make the deal?
I think obviously they're going to go high, aren't they? They're going to go 40 million, which is what any championship team would go. Look, it's the Arsenal knocking on your door saying we want one of your players, so they're going to want maximum for their player. I just think Arsenal got box clever. We'll give you two quality players on loan to help you, which obviously fattens their squad up even more so. Because let's be honest, it is not a God-given right that they're going to get promotion.
So are you saying that you don't want to sell Reiss or Joe? You would only want it to be part of a loan deal because you still see they may have a path to an Arsenal future, or at least being part of an Arsenal squad?
100%. 100%, yeah. Look, we've seen what the youth can do. I've always said on here that they need experience. They need to play. Now, this kind of ticks both boxes for Arsenal. One, you get a progressive player, and two, you get two of your young players to be getting game time. It serves every purpose, and it probably costs you what? In the end, it'll probably cost 30 million, take 10 million off the 40. So that's good business, because I don't know where you're going to get quality players these days for 30 million.
Do you think also, and by the way, Clock Orange, Poland, good evening, Poland, and good evening, Sweden as well. Thank you so much for joining us. KC, do you think, this leads me on to the next point, which is the fact that we were supposedly in for Isco, which I don't think is too true in that. I think this may be an agent stimulating story. He's stalled at Real Madrid. Zidane maybe have lost a little faith in him. He hasn't been getting as much play time. I think we all agree Isco is a super talented player, but is he the same player that he was 3 or 4 years ago? The emergence of ESR has supposedly stalled the Isco deal, but then we're in for Buendia. So if you're Arsenal, you're looking at ESR, we still need cover. Ozil's probably going to go in the summer. What's your thoughts on this particular Arsenal story that has been brewing over the last few days and kind of reached its height today in that we're no longer looking at Isco because of ESR's emergence?
I don't think we ever were, to be honest, Sophie. I think, I've watched Isco for a few years now, very closely. And he comes off the bench and he does a decent job for Real Madrid. But, he does a job when Real Madrid are really playing well most of the time. Now, he's not the type of player, for me, who comes in this Arsenal team and really makes a difference. We're seeing ESR make a difference. We're seeing Saka make a difference. We're seeing Martinelli make a difference. So I don't think we need to go down that route of them type of players. I think what we need to do is buy or help develop the hungry young players to come through. And we're seeing what hungry young players have actually elevated the experience.
They really have.
Which, let's be honest, doesn't say a lot for our experienced players.
No, it doesn't. It's not complimentary at all. Good evening to you too as well, Cash. Thanks for joining us again today. Thanks to everyone in chat who's joining us. This is the Highbury Squad. We're just looking at the top 5 Arsenal stories from today discussed tonight. So we have done Buendia, ESR and Isco. Next, Casey, one thing that you've always gone on about, and I think one of the things that's disappointed you the most is the fact that we haven't seen the kid. And here we go. We've shipped Saliba off to Nice in a loan deal. But the good news is there's no option to buy, which means Arsenal still see a path for him in the future. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a good move for the club, for him, and for Arteta as a manager?
Yeah, I think Mikel Arteta obviously has seen him in training and he wants him to get game time. Probably, Sophie, just like I always say sometimes, these youngsters need to play. Now, I've been guilty of it, and I've said, I'd love to see him on the bench. I'm seeing Mustafi on the bench. I'd love to see Saliba on the bench. But maybe Mikel Arteta saying, I don't want him on the bench. I want him to play regular football. So when next season comes, he comes straight in. You know, because all that Mustafi and Socrates and all these guys will be gone. So he's got a clear run at it. So maybe it's the right thing for the player. Obviously, there's rumors that they sat down and had a good chat about it. And obviously, he's comfortable in France, but he wants him to go somewhere where he's going to play and play all the time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Would we like to see him? Of course we would, Sophie. But for the long-term betterment of and development of Saliba, to play week in, week out is what matters most.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, they're sending him to a league where he feels comfortable. He's not going to need to adapt at all. It's his home country. He'll feel completely at home. And maybe that this is what Saliba needs in his life right now, having gone through a very traumatic 2020, like many, many people. I think one of the things Arsenal fans are just griping about the most is that we never really saw him being given that chance in the first team. And as like you said, Casey, many times on the show, if you're going to have Mustafi on the bench, I'd rather you'd have a Saliba so we can just see what he will do. Okay, that's number 3 on our top 5 stories of the day. If we go to number 4, one thing that I've always been concerned about, as have you, Casey, and I want you to put your executive hat on right now, because Mikel Arteta came out and talked about Lacazette and not talking about extending his contract until the summer. He's got 18 months left on his contract. For me, it seems like he's leaving the door open to maybe cash in on Lacazette. And when we're looking at how few assets we have in order to replenish and rejuvenate the money and rebuild, Lacazette is definitely a high-level prospect, high-level sale, but at the same time he's reaching an age where that might come into question. Tell me why we're not doing this. Tell me why we're going into a situation again where we're leaving it till the last minute to maybe renegotiate a contract. Lacazette right now is the shining light up front. Why is he doing this?
Because of his age. His age is the problem. Now, investing in 2 players who's going to be 32 plus isn't good for Arsenal Football Club. Let's have
He's
it right.
29 though, Casey. He's 29.
Who is?
Lacazette is 29.
He'll be 31 but he'll be 31 by the time his contract finishes, right?
Right.
No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So what you got to try and do is bring that age down. He's already committed to Aubameyang. Already. So I don't listen. I think right now Lacazette's the best forward we got, playing the best football we got. But I just think the way Mikel Arteta wants to play, I think he wants somebody younger. We've been linked with that Hudson Edouard at Celtic, who's a very good player, very good with his back to goal, very good technically. And look, with all these young players we got, it wouldn't surprise me. I've said it before, Soph. Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. Now, if Mikel Arteta could do business, and also, Sophie, which is probably one of the most important things for Arsenal right now, is to get them wages down. Start bringing in younger players who are on less money, who are hungry, who you can develop. You know, you save yourself some money, but you also keep the coffers open that if another top player comes available, you can go out and do the business and get him.
Would you do this? Mishan Swartz, thanks for joining us. Would you sell Lacquer and look at Balogun?
For me, Balogun's not ready. For me, Balogun is not ready.
Would you do this then, Casey, from Nick here? I'd give Lacazette a 2-year extension as it's clear he works well with our younger players. I agree with that. I think the younger players seem a lot more, I don't know. We never saw the younger players as much last season.
No, they're more comfortable, weren't they?
Yeah, they definitely seem to be. I would do this. I'd look at selling Eddie and banking on him maybe and trying to get that British transfer type of money in. And Kevin agrees with you. Amesy thinks it's madness to sell Lacazette. Cash says, I love Lacazette, but in a situation, I think we need to take the money. So a lot of people who agree with you, Casey, that I've always liked Thuram. I've said, I know he got in trouble for doing something really horrendous. He shouldn't have done it. I think in the moment of madness, he spat on the pitch at a player. But Thuram, for me, seems like he's cut from that Kevin Campbell, Ian Wright, a little bit of a smidgen of Thierry Henry on the turn. He's super talented. I think if you're going to let Alaka go, you've got to bring in someone with a little bit of prowess, Super Kev. It can't be someone who may develop into something. At least we agree on that, right? We can't just sell him and get a prospect when we have prospects sitting on the bench.
That's the difference. You have to bring the age down, but the player has to be playing regularly, and that's why I think Edouard, who's French, who's very good, he's very good technically, he's good with his back to goal, and he scores goals. He does score goals, and I know people might say, "Oh, it's only Scotland." Well, you know, we've seen players go up to Scotland and then come back down and rip it up, haven't we? Look at the amount of players who have done that. So
totally,
I just think it's so important how this is handled moving forward is gonna be so important for Arsenal. And
agree.
I think this is just my opinion. I think Lacazette isn't safe.
I tend to agree with you. And I think that's what Arteta was trying to say in that they can still hold the cards. I mean, it's 18 months. It's actually shorter than most Arsenal contract negotiations when they sit at the table with KC, to be honest with you. Okay, there's a few other there's a player that has been on the radar for me, and I haven't seen him play too much, but when I have, he's got the Kieran Tierney about him, and I don't know how much you know about Ryan Christie from Celtic.
I've seen him play quite a few times. Yeah.
Tell me about him, because he's similar age. He's 24. I think he's going to be 25. He has that tenacity, he has that bravery, he has that bravado about him. He reminds me a little bit of Kieran. It's boded well for us signing a player from Celtic. What are your thoughts on Ryan Christie, who's the type of player that maybe can come in, especially if, you know, we start moving away from the David Luizes and the Mustafis of the world?
Yeah, look, I think just like anything, it's the opposition and the testing that he's getting, playing in Scotland. Obviously, he's getting game time, which is so important. He looks like he's got a bit about him, which is very good. You know, they breed him tough up in Scotland. You know what I mean? Look, you know, it's cold up there, but these boys are tough boys, man. These boys are tough boys. But it's going to be a difficult one. If you're going to bring him in, obviously it's a development thing, because we've already got Saliba, who we're sending out on loan to get the game time, to come back to try and, you know, be that guy. We've got Gabriel, we've got Pablo Mara, who's been fantastic, hasn't he, beside Rob Holding. You've got David Luiz Socrates, who will probably be leaving the club at the end of the season. So it could be a good one, but I tend to think Arsenal wouldn't go down that route. I think they've got enough players for that position. If they were gonna go and get a centre half, I think they need to get a really good one.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the players that we've talked about a lot on the show, and you're listening to the Highbury Squad here, our top 5 Arsenal stories of the day. We've looked at Reiss Nelson and Willock and the potential Buendia deal, ESR and Isco. We've talked about Lacazette. I think we're all very happy with Lacazette right now, but we also understand, a little bit like Emi Martinez, Casey, that sometimes you have to sell the asset to rebuild, and Arsenal are definitely in a rebuild phase, and Arteta is going to want to bring in those players who become an image of him, and he can truly build his side. Casey, Elneny, there's talk about him going back to Turkey. He made a very interesting post on Twitter today as well. What are your thoughts about Elneny? For me, Elneny and Maitland-Niles are those two hybrid players like the Phil Neville I told you about at Manchester United that can plug holes in when there's injuries and play in multiple positions. I don't really rate him being a starter week in, week out next to a Thomas Partey, but maybe someone that the squad needs. Would you sell him or keep him, even if it's like a 7-8 million fee here for Elneny?
Look, I know Elneny's not the greatest, and he's not, but you do need your water carriers, your squad players. You do. But here's the thing, Soph. As I said, nobody's safe. Okay? What I would do, if somebody was giving you decent money for him, if you said 8 million, 10 million, I'll take it, because that then brings Maitland-Niles into that midfield area where you can get more game time.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the moment, Elneny is really taking Maitland-Niles' midfield spot, if it ever comes up available.
Great point.
So, it's no point having a utility player if you can't use him. We've got to be able to use Maitland-Niles. He's an England international. Let's get him on the pitch. Let's get game time in him. Fair enough, he might not be starting in there, but whenever it comes up that there's an opportunity, we can put him in. And I think he's better than Elneny in there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would hold on to Maitland-Niles every day of the week and let an Elneny go. And also, I think, KC, we just need to see the shift in culture go. Rebuilding the DNA and the culture of the club for Arteta is hard enough as it is. He can't do that with these players that have been there since the Wenger time and are a little bit jaded and have secret agendas and are holding on to their 6-figure a week pay packet. I think that most Arsenal fans would rather see us keep trusting, even in an Eddie or an Maitland-Niles, than hold on to some of these other players like Sokratis and like Mustafi and like Ozil. Luckily, we've shipped off Kolasinac and we wish him the best, no matter what has happened and how bad some fans may think he's been, KC. He still served the club and we wish him, really well. So, and for me, Maitland-Niles, I think is going to become more valuable as the season goes on. As the season goes on, we may have more injuries and we'll see him come into play. And to think that we've won these 3 games on the trot without Gabriel and Partey, I asked you about this the other day, KC, but just to reiterate to everyone, it's kind of impressive considering that he's regenerating what he has in order to get a win, as opposed to using the 2 marquee signings that we've had maybe in the last 3 or 4 years.
And maybe that's been our problem sometimes, Sophie. The 2 new signings have been, Gabriel's been awesome, but he's still getting to know the Premier League and he still makes mistakes, getting sent off against Southampton, etc. So, he's still got a bit to learn because he's only just arrived, really, in the summer. Partey, obviously, he's been injured at times and he's hopefully going to be back next week. I think he's training this week. He'll be back next week.
I'll be back for Newcastle.
Yeah, so,
not the FA Cup, the
Crystal Palace or Newcastle in the league, yeah. Now, for us, when we're playing well, to get your better players in the team should improve it even more so. Because now, Gabriel and Thomas Partey have got energy up the top end of the pitch. Whereas before, we didn't have any energy at the top end of the pitch. We were relying on a 19-year-old wonder kid to do it all on his own. Aubameyang's form had gone. Lacazette's form had gone. Now we got Lacazette dovetailing with Smith Rowe, Saka, and Martinelli at times, who have got energy to burn. And it's making Lacazette look the player. Lacazette looks like he's going to score all the time, which is fantastic. So, listen, it is what it is right now. Getting these 2 back are essential for our progress.
Yeah, agree with you. YouTube music, you're about to get it from everybody. Stop. Saka is not overrated. That is an absolutely
he ain't Arsenal, is he?
Ridiculous statement. Are you a Tottenham fan? Let us know, because it's very important that we know. KC, before I get to some of the Spanish connections, because you've been covering La Liga and I know that you've seen and see some really talented players. It's a very different speed, of course, La Liga, much more time on the ball, much more intricate, technical. And sometimes that doesn't translate as well in the Premier League for some players, but we've seen a lot of Spanish players excel in the Premier League. Before I get to that final bit, there's been a lot of people in chat talking about Pepe. Do you take money for Pepe in the January transfer window if the opportunity arises? And if it does, we're going to take at least a 20, 30 million loss.
Nobody is safe, Sophie. And if Mikel Arteta needs to sell to buy, adios. It's that simple. He's got to go. Because, listen, nobody is bigger than the club. Nobody. And if the penny's not dropping for Pepe, just look, when Pepe played, he moaned about not getting game time. He came in against Leeds. He gets sent off for something totally stupid and gets lambasted for it, which then gets the fans talking about how Arteta's out of order for having a go at him. When, listen, George Graham would have ripped him a new one and you wouldn't have sent him for 3 months. Let's be honest. But the key to it is this, Sophie. When you see Martinelli, Smith Rowe, and Saka play, they play with a lot more energy than Pepe and all of these guys put together.
Yeah.
So it's either it's in you or it's not. And if it's not in him to do that work and to be tenacious, then, you know, Mikel Arteta's got a decision to make. Do I cash in and get somebody else or use the money to strengthen elsewhere?
Yep. And lots of comments coming in about Pepe selling him, going in for NATO. Obviously, a couple of other players as well, Super Kev. And we've got 5 more minutes left here on our top 5 stories for Monday. And we'll be bringing this to you every Monday. KC, just before I get to a couple other bits, tell me about the Spanish players that we're supposedly connected with. There's been talk about Jordan at Sevilla. You mentioned Moreno. There's obviously Arsenal always with Arteta's connections with Spanish football. Ceballos hasn't really been working out this year. Maybe we'll cut that loan short, not sure. Talk me through that a little bit and how you see any realistic options from Spain.
Yeah, one Jordan Moreno at Sevilla, very good player.
Yeah.
Good midfielder, big, strong, very good ability, passing range. Also can beat his man in midfield, and he can pick a pass, Sophie, which
he's
is
he's a little bit kind of strong. Like there's more.
He's built. He's solid.
He's
strong.
Because we see a lot of Spanish midfielders that are more slight, but he's definitely got that muscle about him, doesn't he?
He's big. He's big. He's over 6 foot. He's strong. He's got a good engine. He can play balls, spray balls all over, pinpoint, but he can pick a pass as well. And he's got a good shot from outside the box. Very good player. I think the one we got linked to is a lad at Barcelona called Ricky Puig. And anybody who's not seen this kid play,
tell us about him, Casey, because a lot of fans won't know, but in 2 weeks they'll act like they know everything about him.
This kid is special. I'm telling you, he's special. It was last season when he came into the side. Obviously, you got Ter Stegen in goal, and you got Messi, who are the most experienced players. You got Busquets and all these guys. Ricky Puig was the catalyst for that team. Him and Messi outfield were carrying Barcelona, and now that Koeman's gone in, Ricky Puig ain't even getting a game. He's on the bench at times, not even getting on the pitch. Koeman's saying to him, I might loan you out because I think there was some argument that they had. But the kid is special. I'm telling you now, left footer. He's a midfield dynamo. He's only short. But, the comparisons, I'm not even going to compare him to anybody because you got to see this kid. Unbelievable energy, gets around the pitch, great on the ball, and he can pick a pass.
Well, listen, you guys have heard it here first because that is a player that we don't know too much about and sounds like an incredible talent. To be honest with you, Casey, I haven't seen him play too much with you covering La Liga. I totally trust your word anyway. But the fact that you watch the league and you cover it for a global audience, I'll check that out, because you know who else I really fancied to come to Arsenal, and I know you've seen him play as a potential right back, is Dest.
Oh, I don't think you get him now.
No,
you won't get him now.
No.
That is at Barcelona. You won't get him. But you know what, Sophie? He's an incredible player.
Oh,
he can play left back, right back, midfield, wing back, tough, strong, quick. He would be the perfect right back for Arsenal, I tell you.
He is, especially with Tierney on the left. Like, I wish that maybe 2 years ago we'd gone in for him, because obviously I've seen his growth on the US men's national side here, and he's definitely a prospect. And, you know, there's a lot of young US players that are doing really well right now, Barcelona, Juventus, and in Bundesliga as well. And I'm telling you, there's been a stigma attached to some American players, but they have some serious talent coming up, and at the next World Cup, hopefully they'll have some type of impact. But Dest, I don't think he's Ainsley. I think he's more talented than Ainsley, don't you?
Oh, listen, we're talking. Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a midfielder who can play right
back. Yeah,
this guy is a right back
by trade.
By trade, yeah, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. He is. I've watched him, and he's been man of the match at a few times of the games that I've covered. Very, very impressive young man.
Yeah. Hello to you, MN, and hello to everyone, the couple hundred folks who are in chat right now joining us. We really appreciate you. We're here with a couple more minutes with Super Kev. Our top stories today that won't have any impact maybe tomorrow, but we're going to bring them to you because it's the January transfer window.
Is extra time 8 minutes?
It's extra time. No,
it's 8 minutes tonight. 8 minutes. Is it 8 minutes? Is it
3 minutes? 3 minutes. So I just wanted to wrap a little bit because, you know, Arteta's been challenged in his press conferences, and I think he's being as forthright as he can in terms of what we're looking to do. But he isn't sugarcoating anything, is he, Super Kev?
No.
I think he's really trying to tell Arsenal fans, whether it's subliminally or, you know, directly, we're going to make some changes, and it's starting right now. And I think it's going to be a very more interesting January transfer window for us, even if it's shipping people out and using the younger players until the summer. As long as we survive and we finish in a respectable spot, and maybe we can win the Europa League, that's the most important thing. But just give me a outro here on what you're thinking with Arteta and how he's handled the January transfer stuff so far.
Well, it's only just begun, hasn't it? But I've said it before. He knows what he wants. He knows. He needed to get to January, and he needed some results, and he's got the results. He's got the team playing how he wants it to play to a point. Obviously, he knows he needs that midfield changed because the midfield ain't good enough. He knows he needs to tinker with maybe the forwards at times. So it's going to be really interesting to see the moving and shaking. We're already getting rid of Deadwood.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep that conveyor belt going. Let's check him out. And then let's see if he could add a couple of sprinkles in there with a bit of energy, with a bit of quality, and then see where we can go. Because you know what? There's still a lot of football to be played. And you know the crazy thing, Sophie, when you actually look at the league and you look at the points, we've been crap, and we are still well in with a shout.
I love it. I mean, I love how you know this league is kind of operating this season, in that we're only are we 3 points behind Chelsea now?
I think 3 points behind Chelsea.
Yeah. And 6 points behind Spurs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of incredible that we really are way up there, in the fact that way up there, I say that we can actually still challenge and maybe make a go of it for European football. There's a long way to go, KC. It's only January 4th. The league ends in May, and anything can happen between now and then with COVID in the middle of everything. I do want to ask you about this before we go out, because I did say I would on Twitter. I think Pep's being a little bit ignorant. I know his mum, I think, passed away from COVID, but the way he's handling the Mendy thing, players need to be punished, Casey. They're in a privileged position where they're actually able to play and execute their profession, where many people have been stopped from doing that. I just want you to give me in a nutshell what you think about what some players have done recently, what Pep said, and how they need to handle this situation.
Again, it's player power, isn't it? It's player power. You see these players just being themselves. This is it. That they're no respect for the rules or anything like that, or their teammates or anything like that. Because let's have it right, Soph. It's not just about them. It's when they come into the dressing room in that environment. There's people in there with children, families, etc. Not saying everybody has that, but you know, there's a bigger picture here. So fair enough, whether you want to do you know, you want to follow the rules or not. You know, because you're a team and a squad and there's staff there, you know, that should be taken into consideration. But they've just been flagrant with everything. And you know, do they seriously think it's not going to get out? Do you know what I mean?
Know, right,
it's
Katie?
like, it's crazy.
I mean, I think Lamela took a picture in the same living room where there was another group picture, and just be smarter than that. I mean, if you're going to, but also look, you know, we're all distancing ourselves from our own family because we don't want to put anyone in jeopardy. And the arrogance, I think, is what a lot of people aren't able to deal with, Super Kev, is that there might be someone on the City team or the Liverpool team who is super strict about COVID, and, you know, they go home to newborn babies or whatever it is. You just can't behave that way. And I thought,
the risk. Not worth the risk.
Yeah, and I thought Pep could have handled it a lot better than he did. And you're right, Kevin, it's added time in extra time. But that is going to be the time. If you've loved us
Sophie
tonight,
time. See, it's Sophie time now.
Yeah, and we agree, Nick. He should respect his employer, and they shouldn't be breaking the rules and getting away with it. And you know what? There are lots of the part of the Pep comment I understood is that, you know, there are a lot of regular humans, if we call them regular humans, who also broke the rules, and we're seeing numbers spike. So it works both ways. We can't have it both ways, but they are in a privileged position. They're able to work and they're able to do what they do, and they need to be a little bit more careful about how they go about their business, because you know why, Casey? We don't want football taken away from us right now.
No, and listen, and you know, we're getting closer to the edge at times.
Yes.
Especially with, you know, the amount of positive tests. So, guys, the guys have to be a bit more careful than that, you know. Listen, I understand it's cramping everyone's style, but it's cramping everybody's style. Do you think I want to be cooped up?
No,
you know, nobody wants to be cooped up.
Nobody does. Nobody does. And you're right, Amesy. The fact that the Spuds players mixed with the West Ham, with Lanzini and stuff, I mean, that's a whole other ball game. Then you go in. Harry Kane's just had a newborn. He's got a newborn at home. So clearly Lamela wasn't thinking about his captain and the fact that he has a newborn kid at home. I mean,
one thing I will say, Sophie, thing I will say, though, is if I'm coming to yours and we're footballers, and you've tested, and I've tested,
and we're negative.
Fine. And we're negative.
Yes.
So maybe that was their thinking. I know they were flagrant, and I'm not taking up their side. I'm just saying, is the psyche of it is we've all tested, we're negative, so we can meet.
Yep.
Which
100%.
Which I understand, but it's not thinking of the bigger picture of the football club. Yeah.
No, totally agree. MN, I really like the background behind you. No, I'm not in the studio. This is my house. This is my den. This is my man cave or my woman cave. Or it could be a transgender cave. Whatever you're saying these days, it's
a London cave.
It's cave fluid.
It's a London cave.
It's cave fluid. And yeah, fair point to KC, definitely. All right. So Super Kev, that brings us to the end of our top 5 news stories for today that may not be relevant tomorrow, but we will be back tomorrow with a little bit more. We're also going to have Kevin Says on Wednesday, where you'll be throwing out a couple subjects to our listeners for them to digest and then ask you questions about. So I'm really looking forward to that.
It's going to be juicy. Let me tell you.
You mean juicier than usual?
Oh, trust me, this one, you know what gets them going. The fan base is amazing. So let's get something going where we could have a right hour at it.
All right, we'll do an hour with KC. Maybe 2?
Points. Only 2 points.
Okay,
no,
2.
That's 2 hours. No, that is so. That really is Sophie time.
You know me, I'll keep you on here all night long, and there's more people joining chat right now, but we are going to have to go. We wanted to keep this one short and sweet, our top 5 stories. Listen, you guys, it's all going to be changing, and by the time we get to January 31, Super Kev, anything can happen and Arsenal can look very much the same or a little bit different. I don't think we're going to see drastic changes until the summer. I think the summer is where we're going to do all of our major business. But we're definitely trying to ship out or loan out some of the deadwood, give the kids. The good news is that the fact that he's shipping these guys out is that he really wants to maybe give these younger players a chance. But some of the younger players are going to miss out on that and maybe used in deals here.
Sophie, I got something to say.
Sophie time keeps going.
Yeah, it does. About a certain player who was tweeting about a number 10, Emile Smith-Rowe.
Oh, God, that annoyed. I haven't even brought it up. You see, I didn't want to bring up the O word.
But I've got to say this. With the ball, yes, I understand. But Emile Smith-Rowe, I'm seeing Emile Smith-Rowe put tackles in back on the edge of our box. Right? So he's got that energy to go without the ball and retrieve the ball and get us back up the pitch. That's the difference, Sophie.
That is the difference. The hustle.
That's the difference. He plays 2 ways, not just 1 way.
Yep. And it's a brilliant point, Casey, because I thought when I saw that comment, I just thought delete, because I've unfollowed him and I don't want to see his nonsense. But then it's retweeted, of course, and you see it. And I'm like, how juvenile are you? I mean, seriously, to actually make that comment. But brilliantly put, Casey. He's actually a number 10 that hustles. And yeah, Kevin, well said, Casey. Absolutely. His PR game is strong. You're right, Winston, but nothing much else is. Now, there's a question that's come in, but I'm going to save that for you for tomorrow night because this is an interesting one. And you've seen him in Spain or may not have seen him because he hasn't played that much. And Torreira might be coming back early and what that could mean. So we'll tackle that in the next couple of days. Super Kev, thank you once again for joining me. Fun Monday breakdown. There's always lots of news on Mondays. But as we know, the news will change tomorrow. And until then, Casey.
Up you Gunners! Come on! Bow.